Podcasting from somewhere in the San Francisco Bay Area, the birthplace of Bruce Lee, the iPhone, and the bendy straw. This is Ruel's Running Podcast, a podcast about running, health, family, play, and an NSNG lifestyle. And now, here's your host, Ruel.
There was a dream a million miles away. There was fire in
Amazon.com. You know, I won't be surprised if more and more stuff that I shop for, buy, and get shipped to my home comes from Amazon. It's just a reality, right? And if this is your reality, go to ruelsrunning.com, click through to the Amazon banner to get to Amazon. Why am I asking you to do so? Well, it is a no-cost-to-you way. If you like listening to Ruel's Running Podcast, it is a way that you can help the show out without spending more than you've already spent while shopping at the good folks at Amazon.com. So help us out. Go to ruelsrunning.com, click through to the Amazon.com site, and shop, connect, and enjoy. Hey everybody, welcome to Ruel's Running Podcast. I'm your host, Ruel. How's it going, guys? If you are a return listener, welcome back. If you are a new listener, welcome, and welcome. God, how's everybody doing? You know, lots been going on, and that's sort of the theme this summer, and that's why we've been seeing a lot of the classic episodes being re-upped or available for your listening enjoyment. I really enjoy listening back at things that I've said and conversations I've had with wonderful folks. As early on in this Ruel's Running Podcast journey. Speaking of the podcast, if you guys like the show, if you guys like the podcast, if you want to connect, check out Ruel's Running Podcast Facebook group. It's a closed group, so we can get a little bit kind of personal, kind of private, kind of, not so out in the open. I originally had the Ruel's Running Facebook page, and I found that there isn't a lot of interaction that you can have in a Facebook page that at least I'm used to. And I find quite often when you set up sort of a curtain, if you will, a closed group or even a secret group, that makes folks feel a little bit more comfortable as far as being able to share some things, and actually interact. So the page still exists, and but the group is where you can go and we can interact. It would be fun. I'd appreciate it. Just look up Ruel's Running Podcast, and you'll find the Facebook group. Anyways, one thing that I haven't done in a while that I want to talk about is food. I did talk about in a previous episode how I'm having my own personal NSNG re-up, having to recover from having months and months of life into living, enough interspersed where I've never really given my body time to, recover and deal with the life into living stuff, and I've talked about how it's just how I've allowed myself to let go. And there had to be a final straw, and the final straw was the fact that I had to put on bigger pants that I happened to save. The other things that somehow didn't make it into the final straw category were things like, I'm getting a little bit round around the waist, and I'm getting a little bit jigglier around under the arms, and all that kind of stuff. So here I am. having to, I'm on this path to reestablishing my health and my body to where I know it can be, and it has been for years. The false, there was this false feeling that I was bulletproof, if you will, because I had been pretty successful in the lifestyle for 4 or 5 years. And I guess, when you're able to prove, at least when I'm able to prove for myself that, I can get through several holidays without putting on weight, it made me feel like, wow, I must be pretty awesome. But lesson learned, you can probably let it slip a month, maybe 2, maybe 3, maybe 4. Why try? I went on for, I'm going to estimate 9 months. And, I've had it, right? So, again, recommitted. And the crazy thing, and I know I want to talk about food, was, I was still preparing a lot of healthy food that were aligned with NSNG. Did it primarily for my wife. And speaking of my wife, she's killing it. She's she's lost a significant amount of weight that which was a struggle for quite a while. She blessed our family with birthing 3 kids. So anybody who's listening who has a wife or is a mom of children or a child and knows what pregnancy or pregnancies can do as far as your body and stuff. So anyways, yeah, my wife's been killing it, and I've still been making shakes practically every week, every day, and not every other day for her, using the Vitamix, and we recently, this is where I'm talking about food now, we recently acquired and obtained the popular Instant Pot. A while back there was Prime Day, where you can get stuff on Amazon as a Prime member at a discount, and my wife and I went halvesies on one of the models of Instant Pot. We got the 9 quart, and no idea how much of a monstrosity that thing would be, but yeah, we got it, and we basically went like $50 each on it, and pretty cool. And that happened on the weekend of Prime Day, or Prime Weekend. I don't know why it's called Prime Day. At any rate, and pretty excited. Been able to make rotisserie chicken, some a rack of ribs. We've done a traditional Filipino dish with pork and vegetables. It's more of like a broth type dish. What else have we done in it? I've oversteamed the heck out of a bunch of broccoli crowns and turned it into mush. What else? I have done several batches of bone broth. It's fantastic, and it's just an easy way. If you've ever, like for me, I've seen my grandmother and my mom use the pressure cooker to make some awesome stuff, and I was never the whole pressure release valve or mechanism on a pressure cooker never appealed to me as far as something that I wanted to do. It just seemed like a lot of paying attention, that I'd have to do to pressure cook properly. And I found that the Instant Pot, if you guys can hear children in the background, that's mine. I have them playing video games at the moment. That way I could take care of some stuff like work and taking a moment to chat with you guys. Anyways, so yeah, then that the following weekend we got that Instant Pot. We met up with some good friends in the city in San Francisco, in Japantown, and spent some time with them. They're a couple who are expecting their first child, so yeah, my wife set aside a lot of our daughter's older clothes or old clothes. I mean, not like junky clothes, really good clothes, and some furniture, namely a shelf, which could be used for books and bins for a child, as well as a trike, a girl's tricycle. So we met up with these friends and we gave them all of these items so they would have that stuff on hand and for their daughter to use and for them to enjoy. And we love connecting with these friends. And before we, after spending a small part of the day with them and we had to part ways, we parked our vehicles close to each other so that we can, hand over the goods. And by surprise, we were gifted a Instant Pot. So there we were with a second Instant Pot. It was a model. It was the 6-quart model. So we have basically a Papa and a Mama Instant Pot in our kitchen, and we're able to make, the same good stuff, but able to make, stuff side by side and not have to wait for a dish to be prepared before, to make the next thing. We can do 2 things at the same time, and it's awesome. Yeah, that's sort of food and kitchen time. Having fun with that. And at the moment, just warming the broth and warming the rotisserie chicken. It's fantastic. If you've ever used the Instant Pot, you know what I'm talking about. And when you're doing things like chicken, the way we do the rotisserie chicken is, we'll season the thing and we'll warm up. As a matter of fact, I think I did a little bit of a video. I did a little bit of a YouTube video. It was like an abbreviated video of it all, but you can use the Instant Pot to brown the surface of your meat before actually pressure cooking it with other ingredients. It'll take like 25-30 minutes of the pressure cooking to get it all done, and then depending on how you want to depressurize the thing, you would either wait the additional 20 minutes for it to depressurize naturally, or you could use a little knob at the top of the Instant Pot to release some pressure. Pretty good. And so the first time we made this rotisserie chicken, we were browning the meat out in the open, and the chicken is browning, and it was just making this wonderful smell in the kitchen, in the family room. And I've never seen our kids so interested in eating something that was, just started to cook. The smell really got to them. And that first night, we, within a couple hours, had rotisserie chicken done. And for them to enjoy, you can probably get it done as quick as, an hour. Not too bad. And here's the thing, though: when you use the pressure cooking capabilities of a Instant Pot, you're like slow cook. It's like slow cooking. And what do I mean by that? Well, ordinarily, when I get a whole bird, like a roasted chicken, I'll save the bones because I want to use that for future batches of bone broth that I'll make, right? And and when I make my bone broth, and I've made videos of that before, and talked about it before in the podcast. But when you make a good bone broth, you use a slow cooker. You can use a slow cooker or a stock pot, and for a long period of time, make the thing stew, simmer or whatever. And, you would warm it up and you would shut it down, you would enjoy it. And then, if you want some more broth, you would warm it up again. And all the while sort of leaving the bones in there so that you could, through the process of cooking and rewarming, try to extract as much of the goodness that's in the bones, bring it out into the liquid so that you can, drink it and have it. But here's the thing: when I do the whole bird in the Instant Pot, wait, I'll backtrack.
Coming up, Rue gives us something else to think about. How vague is that, Ruel? Geez. Could you be any vaguer, Ruel? Well, it's all coming up on Ruel's Running. Okay. The book is called Eat Happy, Gluten-Free, Grain-Free, Low-Carb Recipes for a Joyful Life by me, Anna Vicino. Eat Happy has 154 delicious grain-free, gluten-free recipes that are also free of any processed sugars. There are meats, fish, sides, soup, starters, casseroles, slow cooker recipes, breakfast dishes, and even desserts to satisfy any sweets craving you might have, all with virtually no sugar. If you are low-carb, paleo, are wanting to keep autoimmune issues at bay, or just want to lose extra weight, Eat Happy gives you comfort food where you won't miss the sugars or grains, so your body and brain can feel happy from eating real food. Okay, go get it then. Now's your chance. Yay! Yay!
So reworking, rewarming, reheating of the bones when you're making a bone broth, what it eventually does is it can make the bones break down, little by little, and it can make chicken bones soft, right? And that's when I know that I've pulled as much as I possibly can from the bones. It's so soft you can take a kitchen shears, and cut like a drumstick bone. Is that soft. And so back to the Instant Pot. When I make a whole bird in the Instant Pot and I leave it in there and I rewarm it later, because of the pressure that's needed, that's the pressure capabilities of the Instant Pot. It's like concentrating the cooking abilities that you would have done with a slow cooker, by making it faster, condensing. And so I end up with not just roast chicken, but I practically end up with soft bones already. So there I am with wonderful roast chicken, and the bones that I had expected to save for a future bone broth probably aren't good for bone broth anymore. And what does that mean? Well, it means that whatever juices that had been rendered out of making that rotisserie chicken, all of that goodness that I would have come to expect from making bone broth and sucking out of bones is now at the bottom of that Instant Pot, and I best save that liquid, and I do. I put them in a jar, and it's not the same as bone broth, but it's still the goodness that is rendered off of the whole bird, and I'll save it. I'll put it in a jar, and I'll use it for additional liquid when I want to make the next bird, or the next batch of ribs that need liquid, that ask for broth. I'll put that as the broth alternative. And the reason why I don't consider it as something that I would consume like a bone broth is because, the seasoning I add for the rotisserie chicken is salt, pepper, ground, garlic powder, and paprika. And the amount of paprika and the amount of garlic powder is such that it doesn't leave me with, if I were to drink that liquid, it doesn't leave me with, I just had some good bone broth sort of feeling. That warm, cozy, comfortable feeling, having a nice cup of chicken broth or beef broth. I don't get that. I just get like, if I sip on it, I feel like I'm having rotisserie chicken lollipop. So, yeah, that's what that is. But yeah, so I'm, and really enjoying cooking all of this stuff using the Instant Pot, and I just have to benefit from it as much as the rest of the family does, and keep on track with my recommitment to reestablishing my health and weight, following an NSNG lifestyle. It's rough, I've having to push myself. So now I guess we'll get into exercise. Push myself out of complacency, I guess. I've gone through a lot of stuff in the past 9 months, trying to settle in, get my groove with a lot of stuff that I've just been comfortable not really doing anything, and that explains why, the podcast had sort of fizzled out, and I've had to fill in time with re-upping episodes. Don't be mistaken. It's putting up the old episodes are may sound like an easy thing to do, but it's still work that has to be done for the podcast. The only thing that is not included is the time spent to actually do new recordings, but everything else is the same. Getting the audio file and preparing it and uploading it onto the hosting service, and doing the things that need to happen so that the podcast episodes can be shared online and whatnot. So, still a lot of work, but I've had to let a lot of things like the podcast and my running sort of take a backseat. I needed to just chill, and with the summer, it made a lot of sense. I would have been, had I not allowed things to slip, then I would have been, I would have been making myself busy at the times when I shouldn't have been busy, like, family vacations and stuff. The family did a trip, and I did some freelance work on the side, but it was okay. It wasn't, it was stuff that kind of flowed well with my time spent out with the family and the time spent in the hotel and whatnot. And, and in previous summer breaks, I'll do things like vlog or, make videos and I didn't worry about that this time around, although it would have been neat to capture a lot of the fun moments, because I'm able to look back at old, vlog videos and, see and remember, be able to do that again would have been great. But, I had to, minimalize in such a way that I really made sure that the important stuff was in place, and allowed other things to just not happen. But I think the more and more that I get back behind the mic and keep working on the podcast, I think it might be a good symptom that I'm coming out of whatever period in my life that has made me sort of have to try to operate at a minimal way, and not to say that I'm going to ramp up to get busy again, but I'm able to take a break and come back, and hopefully come back with some fresh ideas, come back with a different approach, come back having fun. And for folks who are regular listeners know that there's this weird vibe that happened with several episodes that I know that came across in the mic, and it's just me being who I am and being honest about where I am, and so I look forward to hitting the trails. I look forward to putting out more episodes consistently and better quality, and reaching out to friends and making new friends and having a blast with this thing. That's that. So what did we cover? We covered some food, some cooking. We covered, some health-related stuff, if I'm not mistaken. Before I go, I wanted to tell a story that had to do with family. So, 3 a.m., my wife woke me up and said that they're out there, and I'm kind of in this groggy state of like, who? Like I'm thinking like aliens, right? Right? And I literally could look out the windows at the front of the house, and I could see like a lot of lights. It's supposed to be dark out, but there's a lot of lights blinking and flashing going on. And so then I look out the window thinking, the Martians have landed, right? The aliens have landed. But no, they were 3 vehicles from the fire department. And the paramedics had arrived. And I didn't call them. My wife didn't call them. Everyone was asleep. So I opened the door, and, they're like 4 guys from the fire department. Then a 5th one appeared off from around the corner of the house. And they said they received a report or a call, a 911 call, that some elderly had fallen and couldn't get up. Doesn't that sound familiar? Have I fallen and I can't get up? But, that's like, no, nobody here's fallen. And I just got up. My wife woke me up, said that you guys were out there. And as you can hear, my kids, they're still in the background, making a bunch of noise in what we call the playroom. Anyways, so, they asked me at least twice. So, nobody's in there who has fallen. No, I'm like, nope, it's just me, my wife, and my kids. Nope, no one called 911 from here. No one called the paramedics. None of that. And they're like, oh, okay, so, like, are you sure? I'm like, yep, I'm sure. And so they're like, all right, have a good evening. Sorry to bother you, type stuff. And they, the 5 of them, sort of went off on, towards their vehicles and out. And they drove around the street, and they must have been just trying to get a visual on if anybody on the street needs their help, but had mistakenly given the wrong address. They need to find who that was, right? And where it is. So that, as a matter of fact, was the second emergency sort of response call that we received within a week. Because 3 nights before, the police, right before midnight, the police were like behind the house with flashlights and looking around and stuff. And my wife had woken up to knowing that there was activity in the back of the house, and she could see through the window all this, you know what it looks like when it's dark and flashlights are kind of poking around, beams of light, and she could see that stuff going on. She wakes me up, and she's like, "There's police out, and there's police outside the house." And so I look out the back. I don't see what she saw, but she said, "But if you look up front, you'll see the police cars." I looked out the window at the front, see 2 police cars down the street. So the police had done some activity, then they had moved away from the house. My wife had said that they rang the doorbell, but she didn't answer. And so I was like, okay, that's disturbing, thoughts of someone maybe being trying to break into the house, perhaps. Maybe the police were trying to pursue the bad guys that somehow made it into our property, and the police were chasing after them through our property. I don't know. And so, there wasn't anything else but to just make sure that all the family was secure and the house, that inside the house was clear. And I should have checked the garage, and I didn't. I'm an idiot. But, that was then, and everything's fine. And so, eventually went back to sleep, but not before worrying a little bit. So I figured, first thing in the morning, I'll call the police department and I'll find out, what that visit was about, and go from there. My wife was up as well, and she checked emails and found out that a neighbor of ours had asked if everything was okay because they could hear noises coming from the back of the house, and they suspected that someone might be trying to break in through the side door to access the garage. And so okay, so right away I'm thinking, they're the ones that called the police, because we didn't call the police, we were all sleeping. And so went to bed, got up the next morning, and while preparing coffee, went on a hunch. Following a hunch, I went outside to inspect the exterior of the house, and found that we have the waste carts, the garbage, the recycle, and the green cart. The garbage and the recycle, they're positioned right next to each other, right? And my wife had tossed out some rib bones in the garbage, and when I went out that morning, I saw the rib bones on top of the recycle cart, with a bunch of markings on top of the recycle cart. Like something wet had been kind of smearing around there, and I could also see a couple prints, which I believe were raccoons. So, what somehow it had happened? A raccoon had gotten itself on top of the recycle cart. I think there were more than one, because I think it'll probably take some teamwork, one climbing on top of another to get on top of the recycle cart, to open up the garbage cart alongside it, and work its way through the garbage to find whatever it wanted to eat, and which happened to be the ribs. And got them onto the recycle cart, where he or she or it or they worked on it. And there were some bones on the ground too, so it made me believe that if there were at least two raccoons, they would have, one would have been dining at the bottom and one would have been dining at the top. And all of the, dropping of bones on top of a big old plastic cart, and the plastic cart lids opening and closing, and all of this racket that the raccoons would have made to get up and around all that stuff, makes sense that, that's what the neighbors would have heard. And it makes sense that the police, after ringing the doorbell, didn't stick around to try and do anything else, because they would have noticed themselves as they inspected the exterior of the home in the back that, look, bones, or maybe they may have seen raccoons, but they probably would have made the same call, and went with that. So that was a relief. It was a relief to know that it was critters, it was vermin, whatever you want to call them, it was wildlife, and we're safe. So, yeah, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. I wanted to share that. I plan to do some jump rope today and get some quick cardio. And when I make it back into the office tomorrow, I'll likely get a nice Zone 2 run. The last time I did one of those, it was pretty awesome. I ran past an adult shop in the city and ended up right by some cathedral, and then backtracked. So I was making sure that I got the right coverage of of things in San Francisco. So I think on my next run, I'll run along the strip that has a lot of the strip clubs and all that good stuff, and bars and whatnot, and see how that goes. Anyways, that's that. Thanks for listening, folks. Again, if you guys want to connect in any intimate sort of way, reach out at the Ruel's Running Facebook group. Follow me on Twitter. You can find me there as well. check out the website, poke around, poke in, up, and around, and I'll catch you in the next episode. Thanks for listening, guys, and remember, eat something delicious, hug your family, and go run something. Bye.
Thanks for listening to Ruel's Running Podcast with Ruel. If you like what you just heard, share it with your friends and your enemies. Also, be sure to check out the site over at ruelsrunning.com. This has been another Coffee with Heavy Cream production. Join us next time for another silly show of Ruel's Running Podcast.